Hi, this is Brendan Murphy here, and welcome to the Please Do Something podcast. I'm a singer and a songwriter who will be talking to inspiring creative people about how and why they do what they do and some of the lessons they've learned along the way. Thanks for listening. As the four of us prepared to release a brand new album in 2024, I got the chance to sit down with my good friend Greg Canty over a series of episodes and talk about the albums that brought us to this point. Let's get into it.
Brendan, great to see you again.
And you, Greg.
We came from Classified Personal, which was 10 years on from Songs for the Tempted. It was like you reclaimed the four of us, the new version of the four of us. How did that go?
Classified Personal went better than we thought it would. It seemed a big change to a lot of the people we played the demos to before the album was released. I think some people around us thought, what is this? Ultimately, it surprised people in a good way, and we ended up with a really great audience for that record. We found another audience that we maybe didn't have with the four of us, and also we strengthened our ties to that part of the four of us audience that loved the acoustic songs, because that's really what Classified Personal was. And also my voice works well in a sort of, how do I put this? Sometimes I sound a bit haunted when I'm singing. I'm not trying to sound like it, but it's just in the voice. And when you play to that with lyrics that match that tone, you can end up with something that's quite powerful. And I think that's what happened with that record. I remember one of the reviews said, it starts off slow and you think, oh yeah, well, it's going to speed up any time now, and then it doesn't. It had the courage of its convictions. So I really liked where it put us, because I was tired running around the stage, rocking out. So this felt like a nice place to be.
Yeah, and did that put new energy into the band? Were you busy gigging and all of that?
Classified Personal was a fun album to gig because it's also based around my limited guitar style, really. So Declan had done elaborate work on his guitar to try and make my guitar sound a bit more interesting. But all the songs sort of stem from that rudimentary style I have of playing the guitar. So I was at home. It was fantastic for me because I could do this stuff in my sleep. It was a bigger job for Declan because he had more work to do to sort of fill out the spaces. But I really enjoyed it. And we toured that album a lot. And it did surprisingly well for us in Ireland. You know, it got a lot of radio play for a record that wasn't that commercial. So it set up the next record, which was Heaven and Earth. So when we were writing Heaven and Earth, we realised that it had worked. We had an audience that were interested in that sort of songwriting. I don't know what you would call it, sort of mood music, but certainly not pop music or rock music. We were enjoying it and we thought, okay, well, what can we make another record that has the spirit of what Classified Personal has, but goes a bit more cinematic, is a bit more widescreen. Classified Personal was a bedroom album in the true sense of the word. There was no real drums in Classified Personal. It was very much like the way we'd started songwriting, which was just a drum box and two acoustic guitars, and we kept it that way. So the record sounds like that. On this record, we said it would be great to go back into Amberville and have Peter play drums on this stuff to give it a bit more weight. And that's what happened. He was fantastic. The studio was fantastic. And we got lucky with the songs.
When you say we got lucky with the songs, is that just you were in a creative frame of mind? What does that mean?
I think that songwriting is a mysterious business. Be convinced that you've written the best songs and the best album, and then when the dust settles, you realise it wasn't as good as you thought it was. And sometimes it works the other way around. And for Heaven and Earth, I had titles. I had written songs. Sometimes I do that to try and put myself in a space where it means that I'm never stuck. It's really like word association. So I write, so like I'd have a title called Sunlight. That's just a title. So tell me more. Or a title, Gospel Choir, or a title, Voice in the Radio. Well, what does that mean? Well, what exactly does that mean? And then it's my job to try and figure out what that means. So the first thing I would normally do is I pick up a guitar and I start playing something and putting that title in a line of nonsensical words. And then I try to listen to myself and go, now what sort of mood is this person in? So sometimes I'll start off, and sometimes it's not just me. Sometimes it's a few people. So for example, in gospel choir, myself, Declan and Enda were in Amberville. The great thing about being in that studio is that you can jam with Enda. And Enda is a fantastic and play any instrument. So we'll start playing on the two guitars, and I've got this notebook and it's got all these titles on it, and I'll pick one, like gospel choir, and I'll just start singing. And Declan will have a couple of riffs and he's playing something, and I'm trying to figure out what title I think would work with the guitar riff that he's playing. And then I start singing. He's doing this sort of slow groove to what is going to be gospel choir, and I start picking on my guitar and singing gospel choir and nonsensical. Where I think she's beat dead on her feet. No, I think maybe she sings in the midnight. Probably didn't have all of that actually. But then Enda starts playing on a Rhodes or a Wurlitzer, and suddenly, for me, who's a lyricist, what happens is when that happens, it's like the soundtrack at the start of a movie, and all I have to do is what's in front of me now, And for gospel choir, I saw it just seemed like a sort of a lonely sort of a song, but also sort of spiritual. And then we just kept working on it. And another thing that really helped that song was Peter, the drummer. We would get Peter in Tamberville, and Declan and Enda and myself would sit. And Peter hated this way of working, by the way, I think. But he was brilliant at it. And we'd say, okay, you're going to play to this music. The song wasn't completely written at this point. So it was more like I had some words and with the groove and that. He would say, just let's play along to this. And then Peter would be getting into something, and Declan and Enda would go, okay, that's enough of that. Now try something else. And as Peter found out be exhausting, like 6 or 7 different fields. And then in gospel choir, he ended up with this fantastic. There was one thing he did. Second he did it, everybody went, wow, that's fantastic. It's an odd thing. It's a bit of like a slowed down 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover type drum riff that's really unusual. And we all get very excited because when you put that to the thing that the three of us were doing, suddenly, this sounds like a record already, That happens sometimes in studios and sometimes it doesn't happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen for years, you know what I mean? And sometimes it happens all the time. And Heaven and Earth was one of those ones where it was just, those sort of moments were happening a lot, where people were playing like really interesting parts. All I had to do was not mess it up.
Can I start by saying I'm not sure there's a God? And this is no confession, so please don't start. It's just in case you're wondering why I come.
And also, but they had a box we called the SU 700. I think Declan had got it, or Peter had got it, or Peter and Declan had got it. And it was a box that was used by DJs to affect sounds, distort sounds. But when they got their hands on it, they started creating these ambient sounds. So Declan would take guitar parts and he would work on stuff, and then Peter would take it back to Belfast and he would work on stuff, and then they'd bring it back, and it created this sort of weird soundtracky vibe, and they would try it with the songs. So say for example, Sunlight opens with a drum fill and this whacked out sound. But that whacked out sound was, I think, I don't know what it was, but it was something that was popped through this SU 700. And the whole album, practically everything was shoved through this SU 700, this wee box, which ended up giving the album a sort of a very unique, haunted, cinematic sound that it just doesn't sound like anything else. It doesn't sound like any other record, and it doesn't sound like any other of our records.
Yeah, Sunlight. I went to see Sting recently. He played in Cork, Musgrave Park. Great gig, absolutely great gig. For me, Sunlight is your field of gold. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. And I know you picked it yourself as the music for the podcast. Why did you do that? Is it extra special to you, or?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, that song was surprising. I have to give our co-producer, Pat O'Donnell, a lot of the credit for that song, because Declan had actually gone on holiday and we were working in the house in Sandymount. So we would do a lot of the prep work and some of the actual recording in the bedroom, the same way we had with Classified Personal. And at that point, we were working on drum boxes. And Pat had created this sort of like a sort of a drum rhythm that didn't have much space in it, really, certainly. So I was, immediately going, what the hell can I sing over this, So the only thing you could do was strum the guitar. So myself and Pat sat strumming guitar riffs over this incessant drum rhythm. And again, it was very refreshing to be playing with Pat. Normally I'm playing with Declan, but I was playing with Pat, who's a guitar player. So that, I think, was a bit inspirational for me. So, and this was how it started, actually. So the Sunlight didn't exist before this. And we started strumming, and Pat is a very good guitar player, but he hadn't worked with me writing songs much, if you know what I mean, the producer. So I was like, Declan's so used to it, but I would be going, and then I'd be shouting to Pat, okay, we need change. And he'd hit a chord and I go, no. And then he'd hit another chord and I go, no. Then I'd hit a chord and, he was like sort of, and anyway, every now and then I would go, yeah, that one. And then, no, yes, no. And finally, he ended up creating this sort of, because part of the trick in Sunlight is the way that it goes up. It goes into a bridge, goes up, and then when you really shouldn't go any higher, it goes up again, forcing me to sing in falsetto. And when he hit that last chord, and I think I had Sunlight at the time, and I sang that in the last chord, we got very excited because suddenly it had a lot of things working for it. It had a sort of a intensity. So just on a drum rhythm and these acoustic guitars, it sounded, this is going to be a good song. And then Declan came back and he got really excited, but we didn't have a verse. And then so the idea but we did have verse chords. So he came back and he went, this is great. And then it was like, now Brenton, write a melody for the verse chords. And I kept writing melodies that weren't good enough. So I'd write it and, Pat and Declan would come and go, no, day after day, because the bridge and the chorus were so good. And then I got it with the words that we actually used. I got it. It's an odd verse. It's the timing of it's odd. And they all got excited. We thought, well, that song is good. But then when we took it into Amberville, and again, it was another one of those songs that Peter, it was like, let's get Peter in. Okay, Peter, play over that. No, play over that. No. And then again, he did part that's the intro for Sunlight, which just is, and everybody got very excited. And so with the song, we thought, well, this is really good. But then Peter and Declan, I think, were working on this device that does all these things that makes the creates a sort of cinematic sound. And one day Declan came down to me and he said, "What do you think of this intro?" And he played me what is the intro to Sunlight. And at the time, it was like a real shock because the intro is nothing like the song. The chords on the intro, it goes ba 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 ba, and then it goes into ba ba da bum da ba ba da bum ba bum 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 bum. And it really threw me the first time I heard it. I sort of I burst out laughing because it was like I just couldn't understand how he or him and Peter had created that. How do you get into the song from that? And they pulled it off, So I love the intro for that song. I mean, of all the four of us songs that we've recorded, that introduction to that song may well be my favorite of any of them. So it was always going to be the opening song from that record. But we got so excited about it that actually we gave it to Tom Dunn on Today FM. Tom had this sort of big show on Today FM at the time, the radio show. I gave it to him just thinking, Tom, they're working on a new album. Here's one of the songs. So the album wasn't finished. And I had been in Today FM a few times at that point. Quite a few times would stand in for him doing his radio show. So I sort of knew a few of them. So it was easy for me to get it to him. But he said, "I'm going to play this. I love this song. I am going to play this song off the air." And the man of his word, he played it every night. And until other radio stations, it just started going up the airplay charts in Ireland. And then other radio stations started playing it. And then it just took on a life of its own. And it just became a really big song for us.
Speck of dust, that's us sitting on a Greyhound bus, and we're a long way from home. You shake hands, make plans, write your story in the sand, and then get ready to run in time. Every time I try to find it.
That song deserves that. But you need that support, don't you? You need people to get on board. You need fans, you need champions. And
yeah. There's lots of great songs that don't get the recognition they deserve just because it's a combination of timing and luck and a great song. So you always need a great song, I think. But then it's the stuff around it that sort of determines just how high that song will rise. That's something you don't really have any control over.
The characters that you mentioned, the people who play a big part in the four of us, but technically aren't in the four of us, like Enda Walsh, Pat O'Donnell, your drummer. How do you view them? Are they near like hidden band members in a funny sort of a way?
Yeah, I mean they sort of are. As I said earlier, we're like the Steely Dan of Irish. You know what I mean? Like an unjustly maligned act in some quarters. I don't really know why, But you talked about Sting earlier, who also wasn't just even, and I happen to love both of them. It's really hard to write songs as good as both those two artists do. But in the case of Steely Dan, you have essentially two guys and a lot of people who they work with, But as long as those two guys stand on a stage somewhere, you go, well, that's Steely Dan, you know what I mean? And that's the four of us, really, But I think that if you look at any act, any big act, big or small, actually, there's normally a big bank of people behind the people that, there's a new documentary out about a piano player called Nicky Hopkins, who's responsible for some of the best riffs that the Rolling Stones ever put to record. It's not just the Rolling Stones, that a bit like Billy Preston with the Beatles, So it's never just the people whose photographs you see. There's always a bunch of people who are involved. And if you love the act, in most cases, you know who those people are,
You were very kind, Brendan. You wrote a song for my birthday.
I wrote a song for you. March 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a case where basically we wrote the demo, and we kept thinking, oh, well, we're going to re-record the guitars. This is the demo. We're going to re-record the guitars because it's all a bit rough and ready. It was a sort of a dirgy ballad, and we didn't have a title for it, so we just called it March 11th, and the words weren't totally finished. We said, well, I'll get round to finish those words, and as time went on, we started thinking those words aren't too bad, and March 11th, then it became, why don't we just call it March 11th? I mean, I can't think. It became so associated. Oh, the other thing was that people liked it. So we were playing what we thought was a demo. People going, oh, I love. So we had other songs that had titles that didn't make the record. And then this song called March 11th, it was a demo with a title that wasn't supposed to be the finished title. People are going, I love March 11th. That might be my favorite song on the record. Let's not fuck with March 11th. You know what I mean? Let's make sure that basically we did whatever sort of magic it's got, let's not mess with it, because you can do that sometimes, be too smart for your own good and say, okay, we're going to change this, we'll change that. And suddenly, whatever it had just sort of dissipates.
So you failed miserably to work the title into the lyrics of the song?
Yeah, absolutely. I've completely failed. I mean, I should add that as far as the working from a title's concerned, I only do it when I'm stuck. So basically what would happen would be if I'm a writing session, I'll have the titles there sometimes, but that's not how I start. I normally start with nothing. And then if it's looking like an uphill slog, I open the book and I go, let's see what we've got here, But March 11th was a case where obviously I didn't have that as a title.
Shelter from the sun, what have we become? I thought you were the one. Maybe.
So pick another one from your book of the album.
There's a song called Voice in the Radio, and there was another title, but that melody with that word voice on the radio. Will time roll back again when I hear your voice on the radio was actually on a demo for about 7 years prior to that never ended up getting used for anything. And then the events on September 11th, New York happened. When we were making that record, I just must have been thinking about it. And I just pictured a guy in his car listening to the radio as all that unfolds, It must have been just the tone of the guitars. Again, what happens is, or what happens when I'm writing is that I'm letting the mood of the music dictate the mood of the singer. I mean, what should he be singing about? What does that sound like it wants to be talking about? And I had the title, and then the events, I just started writing those words. I love that song.
Where were you that day?
That was written in Dublin. We were in the factory, I think, rehearsing. The factory was a big rehearsal place in Dublin, not too far away from Sandyman, actually, where we lived in Ringsend. But we would go home for our lunch right there, and then you go home for your lunch. And the events of that day happened on that day. I had the title, so that song was written really pretty fast.
We watched a Roman candle burn the day the world refused to turn. Even a chimpanzee can learn to act a little human. We saw a firecracker fall.
You Make Me Feel. For me, there's a little bit of a Mary about it. It's a bit kind of a bouncy, happy track.
Well, I tell you how I know that You Make Me Feel was an instrumental. Now that you mention it, I remember that Enda and Declan had made me a CD of lots of instrumental jams that had happened in Amberville and in Dublin. But all of it had been affected by this machine, this SU 700 that Declan and Pete. So it all sounded really whacked out, you know? All, and You Make Me Feel was one of the more whacked out parts of it. It sort of sounds nearly orchestral. The idea was to try and come up with singing for it. So I had this thing in my car. This, like, it was just instrumental music. And I would be like, causing consternation to all other drivers. I'd be singing at the top of my voice and trying to come up with a melody while I was driving along for this stuff, and it's easy when you really get into it. But in the case of You Make Me Feel, that all came together through driving on a road and just a sunny day and just hearing that music. But it's funny that you say that it reminds you of Mary. That song is like Mary. But the reason it's like Mary is that it pulls off a trick that's hard to pull off as a songwriter. And that is, as a melody writer, a top line writer, and that is coming up with two melody lines, a verse melody line and a chorus melody line, without changing the music underneath it. So the music stays exactly the same. The music doesn't change at all. But basically, the singing completely changes. Changes so much that you think that the music has changed, but the music hasn't changed, which is why that song is an absolute bitch to play live, because it actually doesn't change. So you need the SU 700 and all that stuff to confuse the listener into thinking that it's gone somewhere, whereas actually it hasn't gone anywhere. Apart from the singer's gone somewhere, but the band have just exactly stayed the same place that they were singing. But that song, we just took all the SU 700, all that sort of ethereal soundtracky stuff out of the verse and kept it really just acoustic. And then the chorus, we just piled in all the SU 700 stuff, and it worked a treat,
Every day I can see we're going round in a circle, covering the same ground. Take a trip, just you and me. If we're together, who knows what we will see? Don't you know, we have got to make the time. Now's what matters, and that is the bottom line. All I want to do is...
Did the SU 700 make an appearance on Silver and Gold? There's a big kind of strings kind of thing going on there.
The SU 700 is silver and gold. And in that case with that one, I think Peter was getting so hooked on the SU 700 that he was just creating whole backing tracks. And actually, that's a case in point. That song, he sort of did 3/4 of that song was created by Peter. And I'm just sort of singing over the top of it, So it was...
Give me your heart, give me your soul, give me your silver, give me your gold. No, I can't stop.
At this point in time now, are you getting stressed thinking, oh crap, we're going to have to tour this stuff?
Because we had done songs for The Tempted, I knew that it's possible to really use sounds and stuff like that. We were never really worried about playing samples or anything like that. Whenever we had Peter was playing pads all the time that triggered sounds before a lot of other people were doing it. We knew we were going to be touring heaven and earth with a band. So it didn't really stress us out. And more importantly, I knew the songs were there. So I knew you could strip it back. And songs like Gospel Choir and Voice on the Radio, Someday Soon, those songs, you don't really need a band. That was a nice place to be because we had the sort of oomph of the early band, but we also had the sophistication of the sort of sound that we created from Classified Personal.
I'm sensing that there was a bit of relationship stuff going on this album. No guarantees.
Sometimes being in between relationships is really good for your career, you know. And at that point, I was going to say young, free, and single, but I wasn't young at that point. So, I was
Free and single.
well, yeah,
Sort
yeah,
of.
exactly, yeah. Which is 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So, actually, at that point, I had met someone. I had met the person who I was going to end up becoming my wife, but that was when the album came out. But when the album was being written, it was slightly different. Some of those songs I was still not quite there. But it certainly wasn't in as dark a place as Classified Personal was. A Classified Personal is a sort of, that is a feeling sorry for yourself album if I ever heard one. I think Heaven and Earth, there was a lot of lucky accidents. And I think that is the way it is with records and art generally, or whatever you want to call it. Just whatever you're making, you know, with a timeline line attached to it. We get very lucky with the cover, you know. I mean, there's an example where we didn't have the title of the album until we got the front cover artwork. And basically, the front cover artwork happened because Declan spotted a photograph. A guy called a photographer, an artist, Gary Coyle, I hope that's right, who took some fantastic photographs. And I think Declan realised that the album had this sort of widescreen sound to it because of the aforementioned SU700, and the themes were bigger. Yeah, I think that's, well, you know, Classified Personal, every album is a reaction to the album that precedes it. And Classified Personal, which is very personal. And then the idea with this record was to take the best of that, but go widescreen on every front. So the titles were widescreen, the sound of the record was widescreen, and now we had a photograph that we thought would make a great cover once we get Gary to agree to use an amazing photograph he'd taken, which was basically him in the water, I think, in Dún Laoghaire, taking a shot from the water. And then again, we had a friend of ours called Rowan McKevitt, who's a graphic designer. Declan, who had some experience in that area himself, gave it to Rowan and said, look, could you put the graphics over that? And I had the title, but I thought it was a song title. So in my list of titles, Sunlight, I had these widescreen titles, you see. I'd said, okay, Classified Personal is sort of like personal. This album's going to be, let's have widescreen titles, which will force widescreen themes and then a broader lyrics. So Sunlight, you know, that type of thing. Gospel, just a broader canvas. And I had Heaven and Earth, what I thought was a song title. But when I saw this photograph, I went, oh, I have the album title now that's going to go with that photograph. I actually have it here, just called Heaven and Earth. If we open the album with Sunlight, sure, I mean, you know, the whole thing's going to add up. And Rowan did a phenomenal job on the graphics. It's not just the photograph, the graphics, the way he placed the four of us, the way he placed Heaven and Earth on that cover. It made the record look fantastic. It just really, but it's my favourite cover. It made you want to buy the record even if you didn't like the band. That's the sort of cover you need sometimes.
A lot of us have those albums in our collections, Brendan, and yeah, thankfully, this album was brilliant.
Thank God the album didn't really disappoint too much when you listen to it. But certainly, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, most of that wasn't planned. You know, it's just you have a certain amount of period. You're making the record in that period, and you know, those sometimes you get lucky on a cumulative amount of things. And that's it. I mean, those records are forever, you know, that artwork's forever, and the track listings forever. And I think we're Self and Declan very proud of it. And again, fantastic contributions from all the people that I've just mentioned, from Ronan and the artwork, Gary Collin, the artwork, Pat, the producer, and on the studio and all the playing, Peter McKinney on the drums, and really Peter, It's so much more than the drums, really. The whole sound of Heaven and Earth is really partly him, Declan, and Pat, and myself in there somewhere.
Does Declan have a notebook with song names in it?
Definitely not. No, his attitude is his attitude is I do enough. I have enough to do. That's your department. I mean, we have a pretty clear division of labour, because it means then that I can come in fresh. Like, so if he's labouring over a bass line or a guitar line, and he's in the recording studio, I can leave him at it for days and come back when his head is fried. Because I mean, it's like anything. If you listen to anything 300 times, you don't know. You don't know whether it's good or whether it's not. You don't know. How could you? So it's always a mistake for the whole band to be in the room week in, week out. If you're making a record over quite a lengthy period of time, you're better off having one or two people that come in, come out. I can spend weeks on lyrics and he can dismiss it in 30 seconds, and I really have nowhere to go. I mean, I can't, it's one of those ones where it's like, sometimes with Declan, it's just like, I don't know, I feel funny about it. I mean,
You have a good understanding of that, or I presume, like anyone else, you can overcook yourselves as well in the studio. Are there times when both of you just have to leave it for a while? Okay, let's just leave this and we'll come back a month later or weeks later or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the songs is totally. I mean, there's songs on the new album, Crescent Nights, that one song in particular, and that we have worked on, like kept working on, kept coming back to it. Would leave it, come back to it. So no, I've lost it. Come back to it. Come back to it. Come back to it. And some of those songs come good in the end, and you know what? Some of them don't. Some of them just don't. Some of them are just a waste of fucking energy and time, and you just have to let it go. But there's a song on the new record called St. Gabriel's Stride that actually was one of those moments in was it the Heaven and Earth, or it was either Heaven and Earth or Fingerprints. It was that long ago. Like, it was brought up again, and I wrote a new lyric and some melodic changes, and it's on the new record. It's one of the best songs on the new record. So there's always something about it, but no, it's a mysterious thing, making records.
Like Voice on the radio, did you have a little niggle that we're going to use that someday, or was it just that incident?
No, I know when I've got a strong melody, and there's good melodies and there's really, really good melodies. I mean, it's hard to come up with a really, really good melody, like a sort of a hum it, Postman hums it melody. They're hard to come by, really are. So when I have that, and I have it with a title that I like, and it doesn't work, or it doesn't feel like, sometimes it's easier to let those songs, to put them on a shelf, because if one element of them is so much better than the other part of them. So for example, if the melody is really great, but the lyrics aren't great, it's easier to let it go and go, you know what, not today, or maybe not on this record, but that melody is just too good. We'll come back to it at some point. And I think everybody does that. I think that most of the people I know that write songs do that.
You've got your regular breakup songs here again. I've got Gold Digger and Breakdown. Were they people, or were they just random song names that you extracted? Come on now, tell me.
I think the songwriter always goes back into moments that they've been hurt, or they've been sort of annoyed, or they've been angry, and oftentimes are related to relationships, and those relationships are oftentimes with the opposite sex. And I'm sure, the fact of the matter is, as a songwriter, you're scrounging around for drama. You're scrounging around for it. You need the drama. Like, no one's interested in, I woke up this morning, I felt pretty good. You know what? It's the middle of the afternoon. I'm still feeling pretty good. And I'm pretty damn sure that by the time I hit the sack tonight, I'm going to feel just fine. No one, and I mean no one, is interested in that song. Somewhere there has to be some sort of people like big emotions. People like big emotions and stories with big emotions. So I think that you tend to look for them wherever you can get them. If you can get them outside of your own relationships, I'm now at an age where I'm looking for those outside of relationships. You know what I mean? I've heard enough love songs. It's just like, it's hard to do it. But I've got a very Sharon Vaughan, our mutual friend, who is one of the best songwriter that I've ever sat in a room with, and the Hall of Fame at Nashville would agree. He gets into a room and she's constantly trying to bring it back to a relationship. Like if I'm writing a song with her, it's like I'm always sort of trying to get her out of that. You know what I mean? I'm sort of trying to because she's a what she would say commercial, song. She writes hits for young artists. She says that's what people are interested in. People are interested in love songs.
Heartache and heartbreak and all of that.
That's what they want to hear. She's constantly saying, well, to herself, that's even when I'm trying to talk her out of it, because she would turn around and say, well, Brendan, you'd have bigger hits if you were listening to me instead of doing it your way.
Your heart is black, your heart is black, and there's no turning back. This day was bound to come, this day has come, and now I'm on the run. You left me on the road, and on the road there is no moral code. Now where is my only friend, my only friend? When will I meet you again? Don't waste my time, save that line for someone else. There is no rainbows in round this bend. Yes, my friend, I know.
So if you're in a relationship with a musician and a songwriter, you have a big row.
Yeah.
And you wake up the following morning and you're in the doldrums. The row was terrible. Very hurtful things were being said. And in the meantime, Brendan Murphy is rocking around the place whistling because he has a new song idea.
It's win-win. It really is. It's win-win, Greg. It's all grist for the mill. You can't fail as a songwriter if you've got a volatile love life. I don't now, thank God. But then, I didn't get married till I was, in my 40s. So I got knocked around a bit for the previous 2 decades, one way or another. It's just about experience, yeah. The trick is, but it's funny, it's you're just trying to put a new spin on it. So when I think of that record, though, when I think of Heaven and Earth, Classified Personal for me is the album where it's like I go, oh, I'm sort of surprised at how sort of transparent I was on that record. And in Heaven and Earth, I think I was in a different place, and I was probably thinking about different things, and it feels like it. It feels like it. I was asking bigger questions, and that record, it was one of the best collaborative experiences that I've ever had. I'm just thinking of all the records the four of us have made, and I really think that everybody involved for that record were playing at the top of their game, and we were lucky to have them on board for that record.
And when it comes to relationships and the people that are close to you, all of your records, the people in your circle, are they all necessarily glued into them? Are they, oh my God, you have to play with that song? Or is that like, yeah, Brendan is going to work and that's his music and that's the thing? Are they listening eagerly and asking you questions like, was that song about me?
No. When you say the people close to you, who do you mean? Are you thinking like your family or what?
Yeah, your family. And okay, we were having that conversation about the relationships and you have a big row or whatever. Is there ever a case someone says, was that song about us? Was that song about me?
No, I mean, to be honest, I think that at that point, right up from when we started in Songs to the Tempted, right up to where we are now at Heaven and Earth, I don't think I don't think people close to me ever felt that it was about them because I wasn't specific enough in the writing. That was all about to change. Now I write specifically in a way that I didn't write even on that record. I have less patience with, I don't like vagueness the way I used to. Vagueness is the wrong word. I don't like open-ended. I like now. I'm more obsessed with detail. Like on the last couple of on Sugar Island and the new record, everybody would know who I was talking about. From that standpoint, it's a different writer, really, different and the same. The funny way, Mary was a story with a clear protagonist and a series of events that you could follow. Like it was just like a wee 3-minute story. I started like that. As I've got older, I'm back there again now. But in Heaven and Earth, I was somewhere in between. But the record suited it. Everything about it just suited it. The titles, as I said, the artwork, that funny wee box that and Declan still has it. But that's what's so mysterious about that box. Because I said to Declan, because the whole album was, it may have been mixed. A lot of the mixes seem to have been done in that box. We have a show every Thursday at 8:00. And there's a bit in the shows that we do sometimes, because we've been doing the show now for years, we have these sort of features that we bring in. So every now and again, we'll go back and there's one called the Riaka Remix. Because on the Thursday night, what we do is we uncork a bottle of wine, Deck might have a Guinness, and the whole idea is come online with us while we sort of jam around, tell you where we are, we'll play some songs, some requests, but we're relaxing here. You're coming in to us. This isn't a show. This is more we're inviting friends around. Oh yeah. But if we invited friends around and they said, pick up a guitar there and play us a verse. This isn't a gig. So we don't want people to feel that they're at a gig or any of that sort of stuff. It's a social get together, really. At some point, it's because we had Heaven and Earth all on this box. Declan came up with the idea of letting me remix some of the songs on it without me knowing what was on it. So basically, I do it in real time, So then people have to guess what is the song. So it's like I'm just putting up faders and it's a disaster. But the whole crack is that basically that I think I'm fantastic and I don't understand why Beyonce isn't giving me a ring to remix her latest record. It's still there. This little box that really produced such big sounds on that record is still there. I don't know if Declan understands it. I think he needs Peter McKinney to sort of make sense of it.
I think we have to do a bit of research and find out who invented this box. Bring them on the podcast. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a deal. And I keep saying to Declan, why can't we put more stuff through this box? But everything's now moved on. Everything's on Pro Tools and whatever. You can't hook the box up to the Pro Tools. It's a bit like sort of recording something on a cassette or a DAT tape or a mini disc. The technology won't let you move between so it's sort of frozen in time on that record. But for all those reasons, I love that record. And as I said, I got very fond memories of everything. It's just a great listen. We'd come a long way from Songs to the Tempted to that record.
One of my favourite songs is the very last one, Someday Soon. It's a sad song in a way. I think I said to you before, I listened to melodies. Oh, it's a lovely song. And then you start listening to the lyrics. Well, it's kind of a very sad song, really. It's a beautiful track.
Yeah, I like Someday Soon. That was a case where, again, the chords just ended a beautiful piano on that. That song really lands when Enda There's piano behind the chords on it, sort of a bit of Neil Young, the way he plays, just lovely feel. Peter again, fantastic drums. I think Pat might have played electric guitar on it. It reminds me a bit, the way I'm playing the guitar, a bit Neil Young-esque, sort of Americana sort of sound. I think, did I have the title for that? I think I did have the title for that. But that's an obvious one. If I saw that title someday soon, it's definitely okay. Someday soon I'm going to get out of this hole. So where is the hole? Where is the hole? Well, come on, it's got to be an emotional hole. And, then all I have to do is put myself back into an emotional hole that I was in any number of times over the last years and sit there until this song comes out. That's a great thing. You can go and revisit all the pain that you've experienced, wallow in it, and actually come out with something positive as opposed to just, and I was saying, best thing in the world being a songwriter, because you get to moan and people actually want to listen. If you can't attach a good melody to a whinge or a mode, you're screwed. No one wants to listen. No one cares, But if you can put a pretty melody with it, then suddenly people will see themselves in your story, and you get off the hook. It's crazy. It's brilliant, So I get to moan and actually do something positive at the same time.
Well, that's 2003, Heaven and Earth. That's the pressure off, another album out. And when will the next bit of sunlight hit us?
Well, it's another 3 years.
Another 3 years, okay.
No, it's well, the good things take time.
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. It was so enjoyable chatting to you again. It took us a few weeks to get around to this particular chat. You were on holidays. I was cycling around West Cork in the mornings with Heaven and Earth on the headphones and enjoying it so much, and honest to goodness, looking forward to chatting through the different tracks and getting to know them a little bit better. And that's what I love these recordings for. Thanks a million.
No, thanks a million, Greg. I mean, you're bringing me back as well. And, as I'm talking, I'm just feeling so lucky that I had so many great people around. When I start talking about it, I just realized that I was a small part of what made it work, and I'm talking about what made it work for me. That's all you can do. All you can do is you make a record, and if it works for you, then it's worked.
Don't mind if you're unkind. I see blind, but that's alright. And I don't care if you're nowhere. So beware, I just don't mind. Maybe I'm just the kind who was waiting for someone else to remind me that everything that I need is not guaranteed. No, it's not guaranteed. 10 we're late again. If we make the next train, we'll be alright. Maybe you're just the kind who is waiting for someone else to remind you that everything that you need is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. Oh, no one can break your fall. Oh, but we've all been there before. Maybe I'm just the kind who was waiting for someone else to remind me that everything that I need is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. So don't blame me if you can't see. It's no big deal. We'll be alright. Alright, alright, alright.
Thank you for listening to the Please Do Something podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, just send an email to brianmurphy@me.com.